Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Field of 68. My name is Rob Dosser. I have Jeff Goodman here with me, and if you haven't been able to figure it out, Jeff Goodman is currently in Raleigh because it doesn't have anything to do. He's going to tell Will Wade and the NC State staff that he wanted to see them. The entire reason that Goodman is in Raleigh is because his daughter is a fan of the Carolina Hurricanes, and he will do anything and spend any amount of money that he needs to make sure that his daughter is happy, because that is the dad that he has turned into now that his daughter has gone off to college. True or false, Goodman? True or false?
That's true. My wife came for the first game. She headed back to deal with the house stuff, but we're hoping for a better result for game 2, Rob. Last night, spending the money we did on game 1 for the Carolina Hurricanes, we all walked away being like, we want a refund. You know, it's funny, before we get to everything, it is very interesting because, like, I haven't paid for a ton of games in my lifetime, right? Like I used to when I was younger, but, you know, I'm not paying for a ton of big events or anything like that because, you know, frankly, I just don't want to. And we were walking out being like, how do people do this? How do people pay huge money and walk away from a sporting event being like, man, like I want my money back. They were so bad last night, the Carolina Hurricanes. They didn't play with any effort, any energy. They were shitty. You know, when you walk away from a concert and you spend that type of money, you kind of know what you're getting. When you walk away from a show at Broadway, you kind of know what you're getting. You might be disappointed at times, but man, it is different walking away from a sporting event when you feel like you just got screwed.
No. What? No. You pay the money for a ticket because it's awesome to go to the game, and if something incredible happens,
it was not awesome last night. It was not awesome.
That's why, yeah, they didn't show up. It is what it is. You don't get your money back, though. Unbelievable. This guy's asking for refunds because the team lost.
I want a refund.
Of course he would say that, Goodman. Of course he would say that. Listen, we have a lot to get to today. We're going to have an exclusive interview here with Will Wade, new NC State head coach, at the top of the hour. That would be noon Eastern time, 11 o'clock Central, if you maniac NC State fans happen to live in the Central time zone. Before that, we got to talk about Dame Sarr, because Goodman has a little bit of an update and a little bit of insight into that recruitment. And there was big news yesterday when Darrion Williams announced that he will be coming back from school and withdrawing from the NBA draft. The right decision by that young man. He's being advised properly. So good job for him. And you have an update on what his recruitment is going to look like. But the big news of the day, and in my opinion, one of the biggest pieces of news of the offseason, is that BOOGIE FLAND announced that he is committed to play at the University of Florida. He is taking the role that Denzel Aberdeen left. And for my money, Jeff, and tell me if you think that this is crazy, right now, assuming Alex Condon comes back from the draft, which I think is a little bit better than a 50-50 chance for Florida that happens. I think Florida's right there in the conversation as like a top 5-ish kind of a team. And if they add fair. 1 or 2 more perimeter kind of depth pieces, maybe another shooter here or there, maybe a guy that can allow them to play small, space the floor, I think there's a very real chance that Florida is able to go back-to-back this season.
So I'm glad you said it the way you said it, because I was afraid you were going to go all Sam Vecini on me and say, like, hey, if anybody doesn't have Florida at number 1, they're out of their minds, which I'm paraphrasing what our buddy Sam Vecini tweeted yesterday, but it was something to that effect. Like, if they get Alex Condon back, they're clearly the number 1, preseason number 1. I don't believe that. I don't. I still want to see how this is going to work, because I don't know if they have a real 3-man. Like, I just don't know if Tommy can make that move to be a 3. I think he's going to play 10 minutes at the 3, and they're going to realize, that front court of Tommy, Condon, and what if you want to put Rubin in there or Hanlocked, one of those guys, I think you're going to need more of a traditional 3-man there that can guard threes, that can, a little more athletic, I guess. So I like Florida a lot. Don't get me wrong. I think what you said is true. I think they're a preseason top 5 team, somewhere in the mix there. But I would not have them. I don't think I'll have them at preseason number 1.
I don't think I would either. For me, it's Purdue. Then it's, if Houston gets Miles Uzen back, then it's Houston, and then I would have Florida in that like kind of lump of Texas Tech, UConn, St. John's, Kentucky, them. I'm probably missing somebody else. So if I'm missing somebody else, I apologize.
Louisville
But
for
there's
you.
like,
I'm shocked you wouldn't
yeah,
say Louisville.
yeah, Louisville too. Louisville's in that mix too. So there's like Duke's probably in that mix if they end up getting like there's to me there's like 8 to 10 teams that are kind of in that like 3 to 10 range where you can kind of make an argument for them all. I think there's a lot of really good teams heading into college basketball. What I think is really interesting is that Florida's kind of been dubbed the analytics darling, right? Like they got Todd Golden, who is the nerd that comes from San Francisco, and they got Jonathan Safire, who's like the first analytics specific hired coach that they've had, and that's kind of what they've been branded as over the last couple of years at Florida. And the roster that they're building is like 2 shoot first guards that take tough off the dribble jumpers that are really good shot creators in those roles, and 3 guys at the 3, 4, 5 spot that absolutely murder the offensive glass. And this is what we're going to kind of have our roster end up being. And I'm going to be fascinated to see how it works. I'm going to be really interested to see how it works defensively. But if they can get, and I think that the addition of A.J. Brown is a lot bigger than people have kind of made it out to be. You know, you want to talk about a guy that can kind of step in and play that 3 spot. I think he's a guy that can do it as a shooter and as someone that can kind of play off the ball a little bit. So I think that gives them more lineup versatility. But I think that the roster build is really, really fascinating the way that they have kind of done this. And it's going a little bit off script in terms of what you normally think of when you think of an analytics driven kind of coaching staff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I wonder if CJ Ingram can end up being that 3-man at the end of the year. I'm not saying he's going to be ready to do that as a true freshman, you know, in November or December. But if you're Florida, you're playing for what? February and March. And could, you know, CJ Ingram, who we've seen, 2 sports star, dad Cornelius Ingram, was also a 2 sports star in high school, played football at Florida. Super talented kid. Now that he can focus all of his efforts on hoop, we'll see what he can be. But, you know, again, just the fact that they're in the mix after winning the whole thing, after losing their entire backcourt, right? I mean, they're 4 guards, not just 3 that they expected, but then losing Aberdeen to transfer. Boogie Fland was such a huge pickup because they were desperate. I mean, they were going to have to go the international route if they didn't get Boogie Fland. So this was kind of desperation for them, and ended up getting a guy like this. And it probably didn't hurt that, you know, Boogie Fland's agent is Mike Miller, former Florida Gator. Probably didn't hurt things as well. They paid somewhere in the range, I think, you know, of $2.5 million. That's probably what Boogie Fland's going to get, somewhere in that vicinity. But yeah, it gives him a chance. I just want to see how the pieces fit together. And also,
I think he's worth it in this market, Jeff. Like
Sure.
the market that we're
Totally.
in for the where college basketball is set up right now, $2 million for a guy that started in the SEC last year, that averaged 13 points and 5 assists with a decent assist to turnover ratio. Not the most efficient shooter, but I think that'll come up a notch playing in this pro. Like,
do you worry,
I think
Rob?
that's
Hey, Rob, do you worry at all that, again, when you look back at it, do you put anything into the fact that Arkansas, with Boogie Fland in SEC play, was 0-5, and then they went in a run when he got hurt? Or was that just more about unlocking, you know, Nelly Davis at that point? They just couldn't really play the game. Cal couldn't figure out the roster and how to put them all together, the pieces together.
I think they had one too many guards last year at Arkansas, and what happened when Boogie went down is that now you had 2 guards that were happy instead of 3 guys that were a little bit frustrated.
Yep.
In terms of their role. All right, let's keep it moving. Dame Sarr.
Okay, over there? You all right?
Yeah. No, I need
to regroup?
Hold on. Let me take a sip of my coffee.
You regroup. Have your coffee. I'm going to have my Dunkin' latte, Rob.
Dame Sarr.
New thing at Dunkin' Donuts, Dunkin' Latte, in case you're wondering. Go out there, get a Dunkin' Latte. It's got coffee, milk,
no free sponsors, Goodman. Come on. What are you doing? No free ads.
I'm trying to sell. I'm trying to get a sponsorship from Dunkin' Donuts, guys. Like, I'm working here. I'm working.
Yeah, you're by giving it away for free. You don't know how this works, man.
Sometimes
leave the business. Leave the business to me. You go worry about your scoops. Leave the business side to me. I'll keep this thing running. All right. Dame Sarr, a guy that's like probably has like middle first round potential as a player, right?
Maybe.
A big wing, 6'7". He visited Kansas earlier this month, didn't commit, was on his visit, I believe, over the weekend to Duke, and it feels like that's where this thing is trending. What can you tell us about Dame? What can you tell us about his recruitment? And if Duke is able to get them, how does this kind of make you feel about the status of Cedric Coward and the status of Duke heading into next season?
Well, I said this a while ago, last week, I think, on our show, that, I think Duke feels like Cedric Coward's, all in for the draft at this point. I mean, obviously at the combine, he did well. We know in interviews, we talked to him, we knew he'd blow teams away in the interview process, but it's more than that, obviously. And he's coming off the injury, so there's only certain things he's able to do right now. But when they're looking at Cedric Coward, a lot of these NBA teams that I've talked to say, like, they're looking at second contract guy, what he can be down the line as a multi-dimensional wing, which is what everybody in the league wants right now. So Cedric Coward, I think Duke feels like, is most likely, when the deadline comes on Wednesday, staying in the draft. So they had to scramble, try to find another guy at this point, because I've said this too. I like their roster. I just, it doesn't intimidate me. It's not like scary like I think it was more a year ago. Now, again, having said that, the Boozers are scary because all they do is friggin' win. And they're bringing back enough guys that are capable of making a jump. Isaiah Evans certainly being one of those guys. But Sarr gives them, a big wing who can score, right? He can score some. And I think he's probably that versatile guy, not maybe to the level of Cedric Coward in terms of his impact right away at Duke, but they needed another guy, and his upside is there for Sarr. And there just weren't many options on the table, Rob. That's the biggest thing, is like, who else is there at this point? Not many guys. You're probably going to have to go overseas. And most of those overseas, the really good players, are already taken at this point.
Yeah, my concern with it is that you're bringing in, instead of getting a guy that's like one of the most mature upperclassmen that we've run into in college basketball circles, right? You're bringing in a freshman that's going to have to make the adjustment from being an Italian kid playing for Barcelona to coming to the United States and having to go to college, right? Instead of having someone that is ready to step in and provide some kind of leadership, where you have a level of understanding of what American basketball and college basketball is like, especially at this level, you have someone coming in that's going to have to adjust, that's going to have to learn new customs, that's going to have to get more acclimated with the English language, right? It's a completely different thing bringing him in. And to me, he's more of a, all right, we'll start you as a bench guy and hopefully you'll be able to move into a starting role, as opposed to having Cedric Coward come in and you could just kind of say, you are the absolute perfect fit next to Isaiah Evans and Cameron Foster, or Cameron Boozer, right? So I think it's a little bit of a step down this year. But the more that I think about it, right, and I kind of mentioned this the other day when we talked about Duke, the more that I think about it, the idea that they once again have a roster where everybody is between 6'4" and 6'11", where everyone outside of Patrick Ngangba can more or less switch and guard at 2 through 5, if not 1 through 5 at times, right? I think Isaiah Evans is ready to have a monster season. I think Cam Boozer is going to come in and be a first-team All-American caliber player. If Malik Brown can get that shoulder fixed in the offseason, then you have one of the best defensive forces that you're going to find. And, oh, by the way, Caden Boozer might be the most, in my opinion, the most underrated freshman coming in this class. So I'm in. I think that Duke takes a little bit of a step down without Coward, but I still think this is a top 10, if not a top 5-ish kind of a team heading into this season. Like, I look at them and I don't think that there is a huge gap between them and like a Florida with Boogie Fland there. I think that they're all kind of in the same conversation, and all of them are good enough to be able to get to a Final Four. And I think Duke is good enough to be able to be the best team in the ACC next year, right there with Louisville.
Can I make a crazy comparison with Caden Boozer? I think you'll like it. I think it's a little bit crazy, and I'm not saying he's going to be a lottery pick next year. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying in a lot of ways, Caden Boozer reminds me of Mike Conley coming into college. And the reason is because Mike Conley played he was basically, the younger brother in a sense, or the little brother to Greg Oden, right? And everybody wanted to talk about Greg Oden, Greg Oden, Greg Oden. And Caden Boozer obviously has been in the shadow of his bigger brother, Cameron Boozer, who's a top 3-4 player, whatever you want to call him in the class, gets a double-double every night. People overlook Caden Boozer. Caden Boozer can make a shot when left open. He makes people better. He can score when needed. But I think there's a lot of the same intangibles that made Mike Conley one of the best kids, one of the best teammates, one of the best players, not just in college, but really in the NBA over the last decade or so or more. So I think it's kind of a fair comparison in terms of like their demeanor, the intangibles, the winning, all of that with Caden Boozer and Mike Conley.
I actually don't hate that comparison as much as soon as you said, "Can I make a crazy comparison?" I was like, "Oh my God, what is this idiot about to say?" And I actually don't hate the point that you're trying to make there. I'm going to make you make a decision here. I'm putting you on the spot, and you have to go all in. You cannot change your pick. You cannot go back on this. Duke or Louisville? Duke, Louisville, or the field. And I'll let you take the field too. If you want to say anybody else, who is the best team? Who's going to have the best season in the ACC next year? Duke, Louisville, or somebody else from the conference?
Well, I'm going to Duke later today, so I'm going to say Duke right now. All right, I don't feel like picking Louisville and then showing up at Cameron and seeing John Shire in about 4 or 5 hours. So I'm going to go Duke today. I know you said I can't change my pick, but I can always change my pick.
You are sitting in NC State's basketball offices, and you just said Duke is the best team in the ACC. So I'm just going to put this. Should I say that a little louder for anybody that might be listening? I think I'm probably going to lean Louisville here, but I think it's
the Boozers don't lose, Rob. The Boozers don't lose. They don't lose.
They don't. So, friend of the show, long time scout, and someone whose opinion I respect about as much as anybody in grassroots basketball, Eric Bossy. When we were at Peach Jam, I remember having this conversation with him. He basically said, "Yeah, in all my years doing this, I think the Boozers are the best / most successful prep players that I have ever covered." And I don't think that you can go like they've won everything that they've done. Like they won 15s, Peach Jam, 16s, 17s, Peach Jam.
Right. And they beat Cooper Flagg, right, over and over and over. Did they not? Now I know Cooper Flagg played on a team from Maine that wasn't as talented.
So they beat Cooper in the 16s in the 2023 Peach Jam, and then they beat AJ DeBonsa in the 17s in the 2025 Peach Jam. So like that's pretty damn good if you're the Boozers.
And didn't they kill Cooper? Didn't they kill Cooper? And maybe that was the 15s, but I think they ran him off the court by like 30.
No, not in the championship game in 2023 when they were playing in 6. They didn't play. It was they won. 15s. I think it was a double.
Maybe it was 15s.
Might have been 15s. All right, let's real quick. Let's get to the Darrion Williams update. Darrion Williams withdrew from the draft yesterday. He is, in my opinion, the best player available in the transfer portal. I think that he's an absolute.
You think he's the greatest player ever? You think he might be the greatest player in college basketball history? The way you talk about Darrion Williams,
there's a very good chance he might be. No, you know what? Like I think you go Zach Edey, then Darrion Williams. I think that's kind of the way that it's built out for me. No, number 3, Zach Edey, Silas Demery, Darrion Williams in that order. But in my opinion, I think he is best suited to playing next to another ball dominant guy. I think the best fit for him is at Kansas. Now, my opinion could change a little bit if a young man by the name of PJ Haggerty happens to commit someplace else. So what can you tell us about Darrion Williams? What can you tell us about the way that this is kind of shaken out? And do you have any insight there, boots on the ground at NC State? What is happening with the way that roster build is going?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, NC State would love to get Darrion Williams. He's a guy that would fit in with what they have and what they like to have, which is PJ Haggerty coming in the transfer from Memphis. That would give Will Wade a really, really good, perimeter trio, right? I mean, when you look at what he's been able to build so far, you look at this roster. If he brings in PJ Haggerty, you say to yourself, Rob, like, okay, you know what? They're going to have a chance to flip this thing pretty quickly and be an NCAA tournament team right away. You got Trey Holloman, PJ Haggerty, and then if you add Darrion Williams to, Breed and Copeland and Arsenault, who I think is an X factor guy, they got enough up front. We'll see. That's still a little bit questionable, but if they've got enough perimeter players, Will doesn't need a ton up front in terms of scoring. And we'll probably ask him about that here in a little bit when he joins us in about 10 minutes. Kansas needs him desperately. I mean, they need another dude. And striking out on Sarr, which is what I think they're going to end up doing here, their roster is fairly underwhelming. Obviously you have Darren Peterson, who could be the number one pick, and my affinity for Darren Peterson and his game and the way he approaches it. I think he's going to be fantastic this year. But you don't want to put too much on the plate of a freshman, and he's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. And yeah, they brought in Melvin Council Jr. from St. Bonaventure, good, driver, defender, not a great shooter. Trey White had an okay year at Illinois last year. Flory Badunga, who we love, but not a big-time skill guy, not a guy you could throw it down to and go get a bucket. Elmarco Jackson, not a skill guy. Like, where is the scoring going to come? Jaden Dawson, nice pickup from Loyola Chicago. He is a skill guy, but their roster looks fairly underwhelming today. They really need Darrion Williams. And then the third team that's in the running, Rob, for Darrion Williams is Ohio State. And they've been there kind of since the beginning. At this point, there's a connection. He played high school ball, I think, with Janiah Mobley, the shooter from Ohio State. So there is a little bit of a connection there. But I would expect it to come down to Kansas and NC State, but we'll see.
Yeah, when it comes to Kansas, that roster is once again pretty underwhelming. Yeah, when it comes to a Kansas roster. Now, I do think that there is an argument to be made that putting Darren Peterson with Flory Badunga and a bunch of guys that can kind of be versatile perimeter pieces makes a lot of sense in theory, right? But I think that you needed more shooters when you did that. And Darrion Williams is a guy that not only is he a secondary playmaker and a secondary passer, but he's a guy that shot 36% from three, can be able to space it a little bit. I just think he's the perfect piece next to Darren Peterson, similar to the way that Con Knipple was the perfect piece next to a Cooper Flag, right? Like, you had a guy that could be the initiator offensively, and then you had somebody else that could do a lot of those same things in maybe a different role that allowed Cooper to take a couple possessions off the ball. So I think Darrion Williams next to Darren Peterson on that roster makes almost too much sense. And it's, so let me ask you this. If we're talking about the top five in the Big 12 right now, I think it's probably Houston's there, right?
Yep.
I think BYU is there. I think Texas Tech is there. I think you make an argument that Arizona is there as well, right? And Iowa State's probably up there. Is Kansas a top five team right now in this moment in the Big 12 heading into the season, right? And I think when you look at the coach, that's probably the argument. It's Bill Self
the coach and the best player. The coach and the best player, because I'll take Darren Peterson Jr. over probably any player, maybe on any of those teams. I mean, again, you could say there's some older players that you trust a little bit more because they've played a lot of games in college basketball. But is anybody as talented as Darren Peterson Jr.? A.J. DeMonts is certainly in that conversation at BYU. But, to me, again, I think when you have that coach and that player, I'm not going to be dumb enough not to put him in the top five. But without Darrion Williams changes the complete outlook to me for Kansas or NC State or Ohio State. Whichever team lands Williams, to me, goes from they're a tournament team, they might be a Sweet 16 team, to a legitimate Final Four contender. How's that?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. You know, I agree with that. I am driving the Darrion Williams hype train. So I
We
think
got to
that
get him
that
on
is
after he makes his announcement. We have to get him on just so
he
you
should
can,
announce with
and maybe
us. He should announce with us. You
maybe
know
you
what?
should get a
I'm going to
president.
invoice. I'm going to invoice him. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to invoice him 1% of whatever his NIL is going to be because I think that I've driven it up by at least 50% for what his offers.
True.
I'm taking all the credit for it. It has nothing to do with this. The work that he's put in throughout his life, getting better, the shots that he's made, getting himself in shape, taking the leap from Nevada and going to
it's you.
Texas Tech and
It's all
executing.
you.
All of
It's
this money
always
it's
all
all
you.
me. It's all
It's
me.
always
So
all you.
Darrion,
Yeah.
come on, take care of your boy. Break me off a please, man. Pick me up, please. Just a little taste for your guy, your biggest cheerleader over here. Gun to your head. Where does he end up going? If you got to make a prediction, you're not sourcing it. This is just a straight up guess.
No, I'll say Kansas. At the end of the day, I don't know how if you're Kansas you lose this battle. I know again the guy who's going to come in and join us in 3 minutes, 4 minutes here is one of the best recruiters in the country, and Will Wade. I just don't know if you're Bill Self, and this could. Again, this is not even speculation. This is just Bill Self being in his 60s and with a changing landscape. You don't know how many more years he's going to do it. His buddy Norm Roberts just retired at 59 years old a couple weeks ago. So you wonder how many more years he's going to do it. To me, you're pulling out every stop you can now to get Williams because I don't know what plan B is at this point.
Well, this also has me thinking too, right? If Kansas gets Darrion Williams, then I think there's an argument to be made. They're a top 5 to 10 preseason team. There's an argument for BYU top 5 to 10 preseason, for Houston, for Iowa State, for Texas Tech, for Arizona.
We did
this
last year. We did this last year with the Big 12.
But you also you go through the Big Ten and you say the same thing. Like Illinois is going to be good. Indiana's had put together a pretty solid roster. You got to really like what Michigan's done this offseason. Purdue's absolutely loaded. UCLA looks like they're going to be really, really good.
Not a great conversation, Rob, at some point, maybe next show, is the SEC not going to be as good? Obviously, it's not going to be as good as it was last year. But is it going to take a
step back?
Right. A significant dip.
I don't think it'll be significant, because Kentucky's loaded. I think that Alabama is going to be really good again. Florida is absolutely loaded again. And then you just how do you bet against Rick Barnes in Tennessee at this point? How do you bet against what Chris Beard has kind of consistently done at Ole Miss and say that they get Bruce Pearl? Who knows what Auburn's going to look like? But it's Bruce Pearl at Auburn. They just find a way to be able to get it done. I think Cal, the roster he's put together at Arkansas, makes a lot of sense. The biggest point that I'm making is, in the last couple of years, before NIL really kind of changed how guys were staying in school, you would get 6 or 7 teams where you really like their roster. And then it's kind of all right, well, I mean, this team is good, I guess, but I'm worried about this, and this team is good. And now it's there are 20 to 22 teams this year that I just really, really like the way that the roster is put together and the amount of talent that they have. And I'm fired up for next year, man. I think next season is going to be awesome in college athletics and college basketball. And while the offseason becomes an absolute diabolical nightmare, once we get to the games, once the games are actually going to happen, there's going to be so much really, really good basketball being played next season, like there was this year, man. I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. When we come back, the gangster himself, the rally cowboy. We got to come up with a good nickname for Will Wade there at NC State. He's going to be making strong cowboy offers to us. He's going to be making strong ass offers to us here on the Field of 68. Will Wade coming up next. If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for the season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Go download the BetMGM app and use the code FIELD today. If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for the season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Go download the BetMGM app and use the code FIELD today. If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for the season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Go download the BetMGM app and use the code FIELD today. Well, welcome back to the Field of 68, and you can see that we are now joined by new NC State head coach Will Wade. Will, first of all, man, it's great to see you. Second of all, I apologize that you have to be that close to Jeff Goodman. I don't wish that upon my worst enemies. So thoughts and prayers with you as you have to deal with a guy that's been on the road for a couple of days, man. You know he doesn't like to shower when he's on the road. I apologize about that.
Well, it's good to see you. I'd seen you since South Dakota since y'all wrote me into that thing. So,
what's the state food here in North Carolina? What could we make you?
I think it's barbecue. We'll be fine.
You'll be good.
I don't have to eat the chislic. You remember that was the name of the food?
Oh yeah, it was good though. You got to admit, it's a little rough.
It was good.
A little rough.
I actually talked to Coach Henderson yesterday.
Did you?
Well, he's at Drake now, but we talked yesterday on some stuff. So yeah.
How's everything going here? So far, so good. I know it's quiet here on campus in Raleigh right now, but I guess the first question is why NC State? I said it when you took this job. Like, there's probably not a better marriage that I have seen. I've been doing this a long time, 25 years, whatever it's been. I'm not sure there's a better marriage than Will Wade and NC State and the fans. There's lunacy among this fan base, and you fit to a T because you don't give a shit. And NC State fans, they don't really give a shit either.
Well, let's hope it works. They're going to turn their pitchforks on me. But no, I mean, look, we've got passionate fans. We've got everything we need here to win. We just haven't been able to do it consistently. And, you know, it's our job to be able to do this consistently. But I do agree. I think a lot of times when they look at jobs, you know, people really underestimate like the fit and how everything fits. Like you can just throw money at a coach, but there's certain jobs that the fit is really, really, you know, is really, really important. And I think NC State's one of, I mean, every job's like that, but I think that, I mean, look, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I know that. And so, you know,
what do you mean by that?
I probably wouldn't be a very good fit at the University of Virginia.
You don't think?
I wouldn't think so. But you know, I think that I am a good fit at NC State, and I think that that's an important piece to everything that sometimes gets overlooked in the coaching searches and in the coaching world. You can throw a lot of money at somebody, but you know, you still got to have somebody who's a very, very solid fit with the fan base, with the area, and all that sort of stuff.
I think. So just from an outsider's perspective, I think what makes you the
not a good fit at UConn either.
Hey, no, you know what? You would actually fit in really well up there, man. If you we could have that conversation. Yeah,
you can follow Hurley. You're about as crazy as Hurley.
No, we had enough of Hurley when he was at Rhode Island and I was at VCU.
Well, what I think makes you a great fit there is that NC State is a program that has tradition and has pride, but also happens to be in the same region as Duke and Carolina, which are two of like the 5 best programs in the history of the sport. And that school needs someone that comes in and looks at it and doesn't look at Duke and North Carolina as Duke and Carolina. It looks at like that's who we got to go beat. That's our competition right there. And I feel like I guess maybe I don't know if underdog mindset that you have is the right way to phrase it, but this attitude of coming in and saying, I'm going to go take the throne. I'm going to go take what's yours. I feel like you have, and I feel like works perfectly within that kind of athletic department and what that basketball program needs.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've spent a lot of time maybe at NC State focusing on the other folks. Like, why don't we worry about ourselves? Like if we can I don't think we've spent enough time maximizing what we do and maximizing ourselves. And I think if we maximize ourselves, we're going to be damn good. And every minute you spend diverting to something else. I mean, there's a coach in the SEC. He spent more time worrying about my program at LSU than he worried about his own program. He got fired. Like he spent more time following me around and recruiting and looking at stupid stuff. And
who was it? Well,
but but I think if you can focus on your program and spend time focusing on your program and what you do, and we got everything we need here. Like if there's people that are close to us who have won, then we should be able to win. Right. We're in the same recruiting area. We've got the same basic resources. I mean, look, it's plus or minus 5-10%, maybe, but
is 5 or 10%,
maybe. But I mean, like we've got similar level of resource. I'm not talking about NIL. I'm talking about just like the money things. Share that everybody has. Like we've got similar resources. Like we should be able to do it if we focus on ourselves and maximize ourselves. And to Rob's point, if we find players who have the same type mentality that we have and that our fan base has and that our school has, we've got to find folks who are really, really good fits.
You got any crazy stories yet from NC State fans since you've been here? Anything really good? I mean, Chris Cortiani probably, will follow you around at this point. I saw him in Vegas, by the way. He was out there when we were out there in Vegas. He was wearing me out during the whole process, whether or not you were going to get the job. These fans are crazy. Anything really good so far, or you think it'll take a little bit of time?
Chris probably knew before me or you knew what was going on. But no, I mean, look, it's just I will say this. Like one thing that surprised me is, to Rob's point, there's a lot of schools within 25 miles of us. And I've been very surprised at just how many NC State fans there are. Like every time we go out to eat or every time I go to a restaurant or every time I go somewhere, it's all NC State. Take a bunch of pictures. People come up to you. I thought it would be a little bit more, divided. But in this area, and especially when you go east to the coast, I mean, it's all Wolfpack. And I think when you go to Charlotte and Greensboro, there's a lot of NC State people, but it's a little more split with especially with Carolina folks. I guess the Duke folks are in Jersey, but
a lot of them.
Yeah, but I think that there's a lot of passion and a lot of excitement within our fan base, and we got to capitalize on that.
Is it strange how the perception of you has changed over the last few years? Because I think it has. I think it has partially because of how NIL has come into play, but not even that. Like when you got fired at LSU and then what you did at McNeese and how a lot of people that are close to me have said even how you handled the situation in March with your players and publicly gained a lot of respect. I think you wear your emotions in your sleeve. You really don't care what most people think of you that are outside of your circle. But how have you seen maybe the perception of you change?
Yeah, somebody told me this morning that NIL stood for now it's legal. I hadn't heard that one before. I was on a phone call this morning, and a coach told me that. Look, I don't know how much the perception has or hasn't changed. I don't spend a lot of time worrying about all that. So. Look, we are who we are. We've always been who we are. We're the same people. And so, if you ask me a question, I'm going to tell you what I think, and I'm not going to, sugarcoat it. I'm not going to tell you what I think you want to hear. I'm not going to tell, and so look, I do go at things probably a little bit unconventional just because that's kind of just how I am. And I'm not gonna change a bunch of people's minds. So I don't try to spend a lot of time changing people's minds or spend a lot of time, fighting what people think. And the people who know us feel one way about us. A lot of the people who don't know us feel a different way about us, and that's fine with me. Like early in my career, I would worry about that stuff and try to kiss ass with the media and do it, like worry about
like you did when you met me from a Harvard assistant coach. You drove all the way out.
Yeah, like when I drove to see you, but now, like, it doesn't bother me. Like if you like me, great. If you don't, great. It's not going to change my life. It's not going to change our program. And so we just kind of go about our business, and hey, we are who we are, and you can take it or leave it.
When you were going through everything with McNeese in the tournament, and it was the worst kept secret in college athletics that NC State wanted you, right? Why did you decide to be as public as you were and be as frank as you were? I think that we've seen a couple of different coaches that ended up taking different jobs in this cycle leave a really bad taste in the mouth of the program that they left because of the way that they kind of handled it. And I don't think that it's necessarily that way with you. What was the kind of thought process there? And do you think it played out the way you wanted it to?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the first thing is you want to limit distractions. And so I think we were able to limit the distractions with the team by just hitting it head on. And that's how we run our program is, we just tackle stuff head on. If there, we don't run from controversy. Like we don't run from tough conversations. I've told her, your success in life will be directly correlated to the amount of difficult conversations you're willing to have every day. And so, we don't sit around and think it's like sunshine and rainbows all day. And, we have difficult conversations. Now, in fairness, I mean, look, my president and my AD, like we were all on the same page. Like everybody knew. And so
it was easier at your level,
correct.
Too. Like Kevin Willard got a lot of shit, but if you're at Maryland,
it's a little
you're
harder.
dealing with that differently, are you not?
It's way different. Like everybody, our board member, like everybody knew, like, look, it was 2 years. We had, they knew that there was a high likelihood that we'd kind of been building towards this moment. So there was no need to hide. Now, look, when you're in a different environment, in a high major environment, yeah, you got to, there's no one right way to do it, but you've got to, you've got to do what's best for your situation and and look, we'd have lost to Clemson. Oh, they were distracted. Look, it'd have been, they were distracted. You can make the same decision, and they were distracted, and, they were playing for themselves and trying to get roster spots other place. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but I felt like that was best with our group. Half the kids we recruited there came there like, all right, if you go high major next year, can we come? We have a couple kids that came with us. We have some kids who stayed back because that was best for them. So there was no need to hide from it, but our situation was very, very unique. My AD was a former basketball coach. He understood this thing as well as anybody. My president was just,
and they had a plan, going forward.
We had mapped things out going forward. They had a pretty good plan, a really good plan, but they had it down to a couple, they knew they had a good idea what was going on. We wanted this to be a smooth transition. And so we had open dialogue all year on everything. And so, maybe not when we were 5-5, but once we got rolling, we'd had open dialogue. And so it's just, I think everybody's circumstance is different. So I'm not saying what we did was right. I'm not saying we'd handle it, that way. Hopefully we never have to do that again in the future. Hopefully this is it. But I'm not going to say anything about another coach who handled it a different way, because you can't judge somebody unless, I try to coach my team. I think a lot of people spend too much time worrying about another team, or worrying about what another person does, or worrying about another job, or worrying about, what they do. Focus on you. You know your situation better than anybody else. All these other people have opinions, but they're not in your shoes every day. They're not in your situation. They don't know the political firestorm and the politics of your athletic department, the politics of your state, the politics of your school. And so, you just have to, I don't judge anybody based on what they did. And, what we did, certainly you could say it was great. You could say it was awful, but it's just what we did.
All right. Looking at your roster now, pretty good roster so far. I think you're hoping to add at least one more piece, maybe two, to this roster. Kind of break down for me the team now, where you want to be, what fair expectations might be for year one?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're not backing down from what we said early in the press conference. I mean, fair expectations are to finish in the top 4 of the ACC and go to the NCAA tournament and have a chance to advance in the NCAA tournament. I mean, I think that would be a very good season for us year one. I think that should be the expectation, and I think that's what we're going to do and what we're capable of doing. We really like the guys that we've brought in so far. The number one thing we need to add is some proven scoring. We have some guys who are going to make some big jumps. I feel good about that. But you shoot 62 balls a game, and we don't have all 62 shots accounted for, right now. And so we have a steady dose of some shots that we need to give out. But we've got really good guys with Holloman from Michigan State. He was a captain for Tom Izzo. Terrence Arsenault played in the national championship game. Jerry Dang was in the ACC, put up numbers. Copeland and Breed came with me. We have a kid from Butler, Langdon, who has a lot of pride in NC State. He redshirted at Butler, was one of the all-time leading scorers in North Carolina. We've signed an international big who we think's really, really good. And he's got a 7'6" wingspan, 7'7" wingspan, 6'10". So we feel, we feel good about him. We got a 5-star freshman, Matt Abel. And
so
then we retained, Paul McNeil, who was arguably their best player, particularly the last 10 games. He was arguably their most talented player, and inarguably their best player of the last 10 games last year. So
you feel like it's still.
Oh, we've got it right now. If we don't add, if we just add one more little piece, one more
little piece.
Well, I mean, I'm saying
how tall would that piece be?
I'm just saying if we added just one more player, we're going to be a borderline, we're going to be able to reach our goals. If we add 2, we're probably going to be able to exceed our goals.
That's what I said. I said before you came on, I said, listen, if you added the 2 guys we've talked about, I think you're talking about, could you be a dark horse, Elite 8-ish type team? If you add both those guys, if you add one of them, I think you're talking about being a tournament team that maybe if things go right, you could get in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I don't know who you were talking about.
Well, I'm not going to say their names because you can't talk about them.
But I think I think there's some other folks out there too that maybe people are missing. But I think that I think we, we'll have with one we'll have a top 25 ball club, and we'll have a top 10-ish ball club if you add multiple. So, we'll see what shakes out. You never know how it shakes. Recruiting changes differently, changes quickly.
Especially now, right? Doesn't it? Like, how much has it changed from when you were at LSU, high major, to now? Because I feel like now nothing's guaranteed. You may think you have a guy. You may think you're in great shape with a guy. And years ago when that happened, you would relax a little bit, whoever you were, whether it was you, whether it was Bill Self, who you're fighting with one kid right now, whether it was Kay, whoever it was. I don't feel like there were nearly as many flips as there are now because obviously you've got NIL involved.
Well, a lot's changed, a lot stayed the same.
I guess you're right.
Shoot, I was in that SEC. We slept with one eye open for 5 years. I don't know what you're talking about. They weren't flipping, kids.
All right.
Slept with one eye open 5 years straight. But no, I mean, look, I do think that there's more. I think what used to be taboo, there used to be a little bit more gentleman. Hey, once they commit, we're kind of good. And there was a stigma attached to multiple transfers, and kids would get real worried about transfer multiple times and what people would say and how it would look. And now all that stuff's just gone. That's to me is the biggest change is that, look, now it's all out in the open. And so now it's all out in the open. And so everybody kind of has a roundabout idea. And look, I don't blame the kids.
No,
I mean,
how
I
can
think
you?
I think it's good, but they're gonna make a decision that's best for them basketball wise, but also the financial component has to be there. It doesn't. I'm not saying you have to have the most. I mean, some of the kids we had, we were not anywhere near. We were within the ballpark, but not the most. But you still got to have relationships and a good basketball situation. But I do think that kids are more apt to move now. I think they're more apt to, as a coach, you used to have, and this is why I think some coaches really struggle. It doesn't bother me a bit. you used to have just total control over everything.
Yep.
And,
Yeah,
now
lost
what happens, you could, and this is why I think basketball, the parity is really good. You could stack a roster. There were 4 and 5 stars going to big time schools to be backups, and they were fine with that. Now those same kids, you can't have the depth that you had. So now those same kids are going to get as much or more money to go be a star somewhere else. And so now when that kid becomes a star somewhere else, one of those kids leaves and then he so there's just, that would never happen before. You could just stack your roster.
Calipari would have he'd go 10 deep and the 10th guy might not play.
Yeah, I mean, when I worked for Coach Amaker, who was awesome at Harvard. Now, we didn't really have scholarships, but there were kids we would take at Harvard. He'd be like, just take him so he doesn't go to another school in the league. Like, we didn't really want to, like, at that point we were
controlling it.
We were he was running the league. He was like, well, just take him so we don't want to play against him.
Really?
I don't know whether he'll play for us or not, but you could do things. You could do things like that.
Yeah.
And
Can't do that now.
you can't do that. You do that now, 2 of your other kids are leaving.
Right.
So I do think it's helped I think everybody ends up where they're supposed to be for the most part. Yeah. Where that wasn't the case before, and people have missed on that, but that wasn't the case before. The kids who went high major, who aren't high major players, they end up where they're supposed to be. The kids who went mid major, who are everybody kind of ends up within the range where they're supposed to be.
Last one I got for you, Coach, is Alan Breed. He played 2 games for you last year. I remember he told us before the South Dakota event, he was kind of the guy, right? He came in, you were expecting him to be a big time scorer. How healthy is he, and will he be ready to go at 100% by the time the season starts?
You actually talked to him yesterday. He's finishing up his rehab. Actually in Atlanta right now. He'll be here this week. I think he's going to be as healthy as he's been. I mean, look, he's coming off a knee surgery. He's going to be as healthy as he's been, but he's a great kid, great person, and he's a really, really talented player. And so I feel like he's going to make a big impact on what we're doing. I think he's going to be somebody that our fans really love. He plays with a blue collar, kind of an edge. We were in Providence for the NCAA tournament, and we walked from our hotel to eat at this Italian restaurant, and there were Providence fans like, "Where's Breed? Where's Breed?" Like, they still knew he was with us at McNeese. I mean, he didn't play. He played 2 games all year. And they knew it, so, I mean, he's one of those guys that everybody's kind of drawn to. He's got a magnetic personality. And so we're excited. I'm excited that he chose to come with us. And I think he's going to be able to make an impact on us this year.
You going to the Canes game tomorrow night? I mean, what are we doing here? No? Yeah, I mean, it's slowed down for you now. You got a little bit of a break.
A little bit. We're in a dead period, so we don't have recruits on campus all the time. So you brought them terrible luck last night.
They were horrible. I told Rob at the beginning, and I don't know where you stand on this, but, we don't fork out a ton of money for sporting events because we've never had to, right. And we just don't, right? But for my daughter, you do it, right? You do it. My wife, daughter, we forked out the money for game 1. Wife went back. We're going to pay for tomorrow night. We walked out of there last night being like, I know I did. Like, man, like, I want my money back. Like, they sucked. And normally when you go to a concert, you know what you're getting. When you go to a Broadway show, for the most part, you know what you're – like we saw Les Mis last week in Charleston. Good show. You kind of know it's going to be pretty good. But with a sporting event, like last night, I was just like, man, like, they were horrible after the first 5 minutes. It's like I just haven't gone through that often where it was that bad a performance.
Yeah, hopefully there's not many more of those in Lenovo. They'll be running out. They'll be thinking the same thing with me. But yeah, I mean, look, I went to the opener against the Devils that was when I cranked the siren.
Yeah, you did okay. Last night,
you were a little.
I was disappointed.
You were a little disappointed.
Well, did you see the NASCAR driver last night?
He was.
Oh yeah, like poured a beer on him and cranked that thing.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, it was pretty good. You were.
Well,
my daughter did.
Let's be clear.
Yeah.
Let's be clear. We won the game I did it at.
All right. Maybe they should invite you back tomorrow night.
No. Let's be clear. It had nothing to do with me. I can assure you of that. But I will say this: like, I don't know much about hockey. You know way more about hockey than I do. But the playoff hockey, like live,
awesome.
I can see why it kept, like. I mean, we had a visit yesterday, and so we were over at the arena, and there were people out there. We were there at 2:30. I think the gates opened at maybe 6:30. There were people out there tailgating. Like, you can see how.
It's like a college atmosphere.
Yeah, you can see how people catch on to it and how, like, it is TV doesn't. Now it's like most sports, TV doesn't do it justice, but hockey in particular. Like I stayed for the game we did the Siren, and I was like, whoa! Like I mean, it is fast paced, it is hard hitting, and there's constant action, and I mean they got to be in incredible shape and their foot speed, and I mean it was an impressive deal. So hopefully we can win tomorrow. I know Florida's kind of in our heads a little bit.
That goalie, man, Bobrovsky or something, whatever. He's tough. He's tough, man. In terms of like the atmosphere here so far, have you seen it? I mean, have you already seen? Because I had it last night. I'm at the game, and I must have had 10 NC State fans come up to me like, "What do you think this year? What do you know?" It's funny.
Tell them the truth.
No, I told them. I said, like, year one will be pretty good, and I think year two will probably take the jump. It's funny because when Indiana hired Curt Cignetti, the football coach, he came out there. I don't know if you remember this. He came out there, and I think he said, F Ohio State, F Michigan. Are you going to do that with, like, F Duke, F Carolina? Like, I feel like you need to do something like that here, to really get the fan base even more hyped up about and I know you said at the beginning of this, we're not going to worry about Duke and Carolina.
Yeah, I think that's been part of our problem here is we've been focused so much on the other schools and not focused on ourselves. Like, if we're the best we can be, there's no reason we can't be as good or better than anybody else in college basketball. It just so happens they're up the road. But they're like we've spent so much time spraying bullets at these other people. Like, let's look internal and focus in on what we do. And so I'm not trying to give some canned answer, but I that's what I believe. I think that's been our problem. Is we've put so much into going after all these other folks. And don't get me wrong, I understand that's important to our fans. They work with these people. Yep. They want to have, and we're going to give them some pride now. I understand that part. But if we would just spend time, if we would spend all the time we've spent worrying about what they have or what we don't have or let's do the best we can with what we got. And if we do the best we can with what we got, I think we're one of the top 10 or 15 programs in college basketball. I think we've got a fan base, we've got an arena, we've got an area, we've got a league, we've got everything that we need. And, I just choose not to spend my time worrying about somebody else, worrying about something else, complaining about like what it is. And let's go do what we do, and let's do it at a high level here. And I think if we do that, everybody else is going to be wondering about where we came from and how we did it and what happened. And it's really just going to be, we just maximized what we're doing.
Well, listen, Wade, appreciate you being here, man. Again, I apologize with you having to deal with Jeff Goodman over there. It's been a relatively painless, I think, interview for you here. So we appreciate you jumping on the Field of 68. We'll be back next week with more from the Field of 68. Make sure you check out our Coaches Off the Carousel series, interviewing all of the new head coaches. This will be part of that series. Will Wade, new NC State head coach.